Leo stared at the ceiling fan, its lazy rotations mirroring the endless loop of anxieties in his head. Pizza delivery. Not exactly a stepping stone to true love. More like a guaranteed method of encountering someone he vaguely knew from high school, who would then proceed to subtly judge his life choices. He groaned, pulling the faded Pizza Palace t-shirt over his head. Tonight, he vowed he would be a master of avoidance. Minimum eye contact, maximum efficiency. Then out. The dispatch screen pinged, jolting him back to reality. Tanaka Residence, 14 Cherry Blossom Lane. Cherry Blossom Lane. His stomach did a nervous flip. That was Kenji's old house. Kenji Tanaka. His best friend in elementary school, before Kenji's family abruptly moved back to Japan. He hadn't seen or heard from him since. What were the odds? Probably slim. Maybe it was a different Tanaka. Or maybe the new residents just liked Japanese-sounding street names and ordering pepperoni pizzas. He grabbed the insulated bag, the aroma of melted cheese and oregano doing little to soothe his nerves. The drive felt longer than usual, each turn of the wheel amplifying the internal debate. Should he ask about Kenji? Would they even remember him? He pictured Kenji's mom, Aiko. Back then, she was always impeccably dressed, a model of quiet, polite motherhood. A stark contrast to the black-clad, pierced and tattooed girls he secretly admired. He pulled up to the house, now painted a vibrant shade of teal, a far cry from the muted beige he remembered. The manicured lawn was gone, replaced by a riot of sunflowers and climbing vines. He took a deep breath and approached the door, a hand-painted sign reading, "Art in Progress, Please Knock Loudly," hanging askew. He rapped his knuckles against the wood, the sound echoing through the house. A moment later, the door swung open and Leo's jaw nearly dropped. Standing before him was a woman who bore a resemblance to the Aiko he remembered, but only in the faintest way. Her hair, once a sleek black bob, was now shaved on one side and cascaded down her shoulder in a waterfall of electric blue. A delicate silver ring pierced her nostril, and intricate tattoos snaked across her arms, blooming into vibrant flowers and mythical creatures. She wore paint-splattered overalls over a black tank top, and her eyes, framed by thick, dark eyeliner, held a spark of mischievous energy. "Pizza?" she asked, her voice a husky melody that sent a shiver down his spine. It was Aiko, older, bolder, and utterly transformed. Leo, momentarily speechless, managed a weak, "Tanaka?" Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "Leo? Leo Nakamura? Wow, you've grown." She chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. Come in. I'm starving." He stepped inside, the scent of incense and paint filling his nostrils. The living room was a kaleidoscope of colors and textures, a far cry from the sterile, minimalist decor he recalled. Canvases leaned against the walls, covered in abstract swirls and bold strokes. A half-finished sculpture sat on a table, clay tools scattered around it. "Sorry for the mess," Aiko said, gesturing around the room with a paint-stained hand. "I'm in the middle of a creative explosion." He handed her the pizza, his fingers brushing against hers. A small jolt of electricity passed between them. "It's amazing," he stammered, gesturing to the artwork. "This place is different." Aiko laughed, a rich, throaty sound. "Different is good, Leo. Different is alive. Besides," she winked, "life got too boring for beige." She rummaged in her pocket and handed him a $20 bill. "Keep the change." "Thanks," he said, but he didn't move. He was rooted to the spot, captivated by her presence. "So, Kenji? How is he?" Aiko's smile softened, a hint of melancholy creeping into her eyes. "He's good. He's living in Tokyo, working as a programmer. He loves it there." She paused, then added, "He would be happy to know you asked about him. He often speaks of his childhood friend, Leo." "Really?" Leo felt a surge of warmth spread through him. "Yes. You should give him a call. He's on all the social medias, I think. He may have lost contact with you, but he never lost the memory of you." He pulled out his phone. "I'd like that." He hesitated, then took a leap of faith. "Maybe." Maybe we could all grab coffee sometime? Catch up. Aiko's eyes sparkled. I'd like that very much, Leo. Very much indeed. Ink and memories. Leo swallowed, the lump in his throat making it difficult to breathe. Aiko was even more striking up close. The vibrant ink snaking across her arms seemed to pulse with a life of its own, mirroring the energy radiating from her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, revealing delicate silver hoops in her ears. He hadn't expected this. Leo, right? Aiko's voice, a low, husky murmur, cut through his internal ramblings. He nodded, feeling his cheeks flush. Kenji mentioned you might be around. Said you were always the punctual one. A small, sad smile played on her lips. He fumbled with the pizza box. Yeah, well, I try. Leo trailed off, unsure how to broach the subject of Kenji. Aiko sighed, a weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. He's away. Working. Overseas. Her eyes didn't quite meet his. He asked me to order the pizza. Said you made the best pepperoni. The lie hung in the air between them, thick and uncomfortable. Leo didn't press. He'd seen that look before, the carefully constructed facade hiding something deeper. He remembered his own mother wearing it when his father left. So, Aiko said, clapping her hands together, a forced brightness in her tone. You gonna stand there all night, or are you gonna come in? I've got some green tea brewing. And maybe we can reminisce about the good old days, when Kenji was still pulling pranks and not, wherever he is. She gestured towards the open doorway with a tattooed hand. Leo hesitated only for a moment. The scent of sandalwood and something indefinably floral drifted from the apartment, beckoning him in. He followed Aiko inside, stepping into a world that felt both familiar and utterly foreign. The apartment was small but vibrant, a kaleidoscope of colors and textures. Tapestries adorned the walls, depicting swirling dragons and serene landscapes. Shelves overflowed with books on art, philosophy, and Japanese folklore. A low table sat in the center of the room, surrounded by cushions. It was a space that felt lived in, creative, and intensely personal. Make yourself comfortable, Aiko said, gesturing to one of the cushions. She disappeared into a small kitchen, the clinking of ceramic filling the silence. Leo settled onto the cushion, carefully placing the pizza box on the table. He couldn't help but let his eyes wander, taking in every detail of the room. A half-finished painting leaned against the wall, a riot of blues and greens that seemed to capture the essence of the ocean. He recognized the style, bold, expressive strokes, reminiscent of Van Gogh, but with a distinctly Japanese sensibility. Aiko returned with 2 steaming cups of tea. So, she said, settling opposite him, tell me, what's Leo Nakamura been up to all these years? Last I saw you, you were still trying to build a functioning robot out of old toasters. Leo chuckled, the sound a little shaky. That robot never quite made it. I'm just delivering pizzas now. It pays the bills. He paused. What about you? Are you still painting? Aiko's face lit up. Always. It's the only thing that keeps me sane. Kenji always hated it, though. Said it was too messy. She laughed, a genuine, throaty sound. He was such a neat freak, even as a kid. Remember that time he tried to organize my crayon collection by color? Leo laughed too, the memory flooding back. And then he got upset because you wouldn't let him alphabetize your comic books. They spent the next hour lost in stories of Kenji's childhood, anecdotes about his boundless energy and his knack for getting into trouble. They talked about their shared love of anime, their failed attempts to learn to play the guitar, and their dreams of escaping their small town. With each shared memory, the awkwardness between them faded, replaced by a comfortable camaraderie. You know, Aiko said, swirling the tea in her cup, Kenji always admired your drawings. He used to say you had a real gift. Leo blushed, surprised. He never told me that. He wasn't always good at expressing himself, Aiko said softly. He kept a lot bottled up inside. She looked at Leo, her eyes searching. Do you still draw? Sometimes, Leo admitted. Mostly just doodles. Nothing serious. He hadn't shown his drawings to anyone in years. The fear of criticism had always been too strong. You should, Aiko said, her voice firm. The world needs more beauty. And I bet you've got plenty to share. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. Maybe you could even show me sometime. Extra shifts and growing feelings. The aroma of oregano and melting mozzarella had become Leo's personal brand. He practically lived at Sal DeMarco's pizzeria, snatching up any open shift the owner tossed out. Weekday rushes, frantic Fridays, even the slow burn of Sunday afternoons, he was there, apron cinched, a nervous anticipation buzzing within him. He justified it with the need for extra cash, the phantom lure of a new camera lens. But the truth, as obvious as a burnt pizza crust, was Aiko. A week had passed since that initial delivery, each alert from dispatch a tiny electric shock, a silent prayer for her address to grace the screen. When it finally appeared, a Tuesday evening, he nearly face-planted in his haste to grab the thermal bag. Aiko opened the door, clad in paint-smeared overalls and sporting a radiant smile that lit up her eyes. Her son, Kenji, peered from behind her, clutching a worn panda plush. Leo. Hey, thanks for rescuing us from Tuesday night's pizza chaos, she greeted warmly, her voice a melody he could savor. No problem, he mumbled, handing over the pie. Actually, I, requested the shift. Thought I could hone my pizza-making prowess. He inwardly groaned at his awkwardness. So smooth, Leo. Aiko's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Well, we appreciate the dedication. Kenji's been clamoring for pepperoni all day. She affectionately tousled her son's hair. Want to say hello, Kenji? Encouraged, Kenji offered a hesitant wave. Hey, Kenji, Leo responded, feeling a surge of warmth. Enjoy your pizza. That evening, a message popped up on his delivery app. Thanks again, Leo. Kenji declared it the most amazing pizza ever. Underneath was a snapshot of Kenji, his face a canvas of pepperoni sauce, radiating pure joy. Leo lingered on the image, a smile creeping across his face. Deliveries to Aiko became a welcome fixture. Tuesdays, sometimes a Friday lunchtime. Their chats grew longer each time. They shared stories about art, music, the tightrope walk of single parenting, and the simple pleasures of their town. Leo discovered Aiko was a freelance graphic artist, juggling deadlines and the boundless energy of a 5-year-old. He learned of her fondness for vintage vinyl and a secret stash of Japanese sweets reserved for those extra special moments. One evening, just as he was about to leave, Aiko paused him. Hey, Leo, she began, her tone a shade more intimate than usual. I was thinking, maybe you'd like to grab coffee sometime? Just, to actually talk without the clock ticking on your delivery. Leo's pulse quickened. I'd like that. I really would. The following day was a blur of mental replays, dissecting every syllable, every nuance. He began to notice details he'd missed before, the fine lines etched at the corners of her eyes when she laughed, the unconscious way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the delicate artwork adorning her hands. He was falling hard. The realization struck him with the force of a runaway dough roller. This wasn't mere friendliness. This was something more profound. Something both terrifying and exhilarating. He recognized the risk. She was his childhood friend's sister, a single mom, and potentially leagues beyond his reach. What if he ruined everything? What if her feelings weren't mutual? What if he was simply mistaking her politeness? He kept his burgeoning feelings bottled up, afraid to vocalize them, to make them tangible. He knew their coffee date was approaching, and he was wrestling with the urge to appear nonchalant. He hoped he could manage it, desperate to make a good impression. Anxious thoughts gnawed at him, a constant hum in the background. Yet, beneath the apprehension, a tender hope took root. The possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, Aiko felt it too. Whispers in the wind. Mrs. Ito's window, framed by crocheted lace curtains and perpetually fogged with condensation, offered a panoramic view of Aiko's small front garden. She'd seen Leo's beat-up scooter putt-putting up the street more times in the last 2 weeks than she'd seen the postman. Each visit, he carried something, a box, a bag, once even a potted fern that looked suspiciously like the kind sold at the fancy nursery downtown. Mrs. Ito's lips pursed. Aiko was a lovely girl, a hard worker, But the widow. Widows needed to be careful. The latest delivery, a brightly wrapped package tied with an absurdly large bow, was the last straw. Mrs. Ito bustled out to the sidewalk, ostensibly to prune her prize-winning roses, but really to intercept Mrs. Murakami, who was on her way back from the market. "Good morning, Mrs. Murakami. Lovely weather we're having." Mrs. Ito snipped a perfectly healthy rose, her eyes fixed on Aiko's house. Mrs. Murakami, a woman whose life revolved around mahjong and the endless pursuit of the perfect pickle, stopped reluctantly. "Yes, well, rather humid, wouldn't you say?" She fanned herself with a paper bag full of daikon radishes. "Did you see that young man visiting Aiko again?" Mrs. Ito lowered her voice, even though Aiko's house was at least 50 feet away. Mrs. Murakami squinted. "The pizza boy? He's always there. I thought maybe Aiko-san just likes pizza." Mrs. Ito scoffed. "Pizza boy? That's not the uniform pizza boys wear these days. And those weren't pizzas he was carrying. Gifts, I tell you. And always lingering. You know, Aiko-san is a respectable woman. Kenji is such a sweet boy. It wouldn't do for them to be the subject of gossip." Mrs. Murakami's eyes widened slightly. Gossip was her lifeblood. "Well, I did notice him helping her with the garden last week. She seemed happy." Happy was a dangerous word, in Mrs. Ito's opinion. Happiness often led to recklessness. Aiko-san needs a husband, not a boyfriend. Someone stable. Someone who can provide for her and Kenji. Not some delivery boy. The whispers, like dandelion seeds carried on the wind, spread quickly through the small community. They drifted to Mrs. Sato, who overheard Mrs. Ito at the community center. They clung to the air in the dry cleaners, picked up by Mrs. Tanaka's cousin who was visiting from out of town. And eventually, inevitably, they reached Japan. A frail, elderly woman, her hands gnarled with age, sat on a tatami mat, carefully folding origami cranes. A steaming cup of green tea sat beside her. The shoji screen was open, letting in the gentle sounds of the Japanese countryside. Her husband, equally aged, sat across from her, meticulously tending to his bonsai tree. This was Kenji's grandmother, Hana. The phone rang, a jarring electronic intrusion into the peaceful scene. Hana answered it, her voice soft and melodic. It was her niece, calling from Los Angeles. After the usual pleasantries, the conversation took a sharp turn. "Auntie," her niece said hesitantly, "I heard something about Aiko." Hana frowned. "Aiko is doing well, I hope? Kenji is happy?" Yes, they're both fine. But there's a young man. Visiting often. Some people are saying," her voice trailed off, thick with unspoken judgment. Hana's hand tightened around the phone. "Saying what?" The niece, emboldened by the distance, relayed the whispers, embellishing them slightly for dramatic effect. Saying that Aiko-san is not behaving as a widow should. That she's being frivolous. With a younger man. Hana's face remained impassive, but a storm was brewing behind her eyes. She thanked her niece politely and hung up the phone. Turning to her husband, she said, her voice dangerously calm, "It seems our Aiko has forgotten her obligations." The bonsai tree trembled slightly as his wrinkled hand clenched around the pruning shears. The wind outside picked up, rustling the bamboo leaves, carrying a fresh wave of unease. A call from across the ocean. The aroma of miso soup hung heavy in the air, a comforting scent that usually calmed Kenji. Tonight, it only amplified his unease. He sat rigidly at the low dining table, his grandparents' disapproving gazes boring into him. The calligraphy scroll behind them, usually a symbol of peace, now seemed to mock him with its elegant strokes. "Aiko has brought shame upon the family," his grandfather declared, his voice raspy with age and indignation. "Living like that with a foreigner." Kenji winced. He'd heard the whispers, of course. The old women gossiping at the market, his aunt's hushed phone calls. But to hear it so plainly from his grandfather, a man he respected deeply, stung. His grandmother clicked her tongue. And a child. Unmarried. It's scandalous. Kenji pushed his half-eaten bowl away. He loved Aiko, admired her spirit, even if he didn't always understand her choices. But the weight of his family's disappointment, the fear of dishonoring their name, pressed down on him. "I should call her," he mumbled. His grandfather nodded stiffly. "It is your duty, Kenji, to remind her of her responsibilities." He found Aiko's number and hesitated, the phone feeling heavy in his hand. He wanted to tell her about the cherry blossoms blooming back home, about the new ramen shop everyone was raving about. Instead, he had to deliver this judgment. The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice bright and carefree. "Kenji! What a surprise! How are things?" He swallowed hard. "Aiko, I need to talk to you about something." The lightness in her voice vanished. "What is it? You sound serious." He plunged in, the words tumbling out, clumsy and accusatory. "I've heard things. About you, about Leo, about the baby." There was a long silence, broken only by the faint sound of children's laughter in the background. Then her voice, cold and sharp. "And you believe them? You called me across the ocean to lecture me based on gossip?" "It's not just gossip, Aiko. It's people are talking. Grandfather is upset. He says..." Kenji trailed off, unable to repeat his grandfather's harsh words. "He says what? That I'm a disgrace? That I've shamed the family?" I can practically hear him spitting out the words from here. Her voice vibrated with suppressed anger. He hated this. Hated being the messenger of disapproval. Hated hurting Aiko. "I worry about you. About your reputation. About what, Kenji? About whether I'm living up to your family's expectations? Newsflash, I stopped caring about those a long time ago." "But what about Hiro?" he blurted out, instantly regretting it. "Doesn't he deserve a proper upbringing?" Aiko's breath hitched. "Don't you dare bring my son into this. Hiro is loved, he is cared for, and he is happy. That's all that matters." "I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did. You meant to judge me. To tell me I'm failing. Well, you've made your point, Kenji. Is there anything else?" He wanted to apologize, to explain, to take back the harsh words. But the anger in her voice was a wall he couldn't scale. "No," he said quietly. "That's all. Then goodbye, Kenji." The line went dead. He stared at the phone, the silence deafening. He'd wanted to protect her, to ease the pressure. Instead, he'd driven a wedge between them, fueled by old prejudices and the weight of familial expectations. He'd heard the pain in her voice, the hurt behind her defiance. He'd made things worse. He rose, the miso soup suddenly churning in his stomach. He needed air, needed to escape the suffocating disapproval of his grandparents' home. As he slipped on his shoes, he knew one thing for sure: he'd have to find a way to make things right. But how, he had no idea. Distance and doubt. The first unanswered call, Leo wrote it off. Aiko likely had her hands full, perhaps she was immersed in her art, a canvas blossoming with vibrant hues and tactile forms. Or maybe Kenji needed a favor, the routine demands of solo parenting. He left a light-hearted message, mentioning the new trattoria downtown, casually suggesting they try it. But when a day passed, then another, without a reply to his texts, a queasy apprehension began to stir within him. It was a familiar ache, reminiscent of childhood uncertainties, the disquiet of standing on shaky ground. He even drove past her place once, justifying it as a check on the streetlights. Her sunshine yellow car was there, a bright spot against the encroaching dusk. He didn't linger. The pizzas reappeared on her doorstep. Pepperoni overload, Kenji's favorite. He'd ring the bell, retreating swiftly to his car, dodging any confrontation. He told himself it was practical, efficient time management. Each unacknowledged delivery, however, felt like a concession. One particularly dreary afternoon, the pizza he'd dropped off hours ago remained untouched on the porch, the cardboard softened by the rain, the box slumped and deformed. The sight stung more than he anticipated. It wasn't just the wasted food, it was the blatant, unavoidable message. He sat in his car as the rain hammered the roof, blurring the world into watercolor streaks. He fumbled for his phone, his thumb hovering over her name. What had gone wrong? Had he overstepped some invisible boundary? Had he been too eager, too transparent? He mentally revisited every interaction, meticulously searching for a fault, a subtle cue. He found only his own hopeful enthusiasm. At last, he texted, "Aiko, is everything all right? I'm concerned." The subsequent silence was a heavy weight. The tantalizing ellipsis blinked on and off, a digital tormentor. Finally, a curt reply, "Fine." Fine. That was all? He fixated on the word, a sourness rising in his stomach. Fine. The ultimate brush-off, devoid of warmth or commitment. A fortress of ice. An impulse surged to call, to demand an explanation, to beg her to reveal his error. But he resisted. A blend of self-respect and trepidation stayed his hand. He refused to grovel. He couldn't bear to hear her declare his misinterpretation, to shatter the illusion. Instead, he started avoiding her neighborhood altogether. He swapped shifts, feigning obligations to his mother's garden. He felt like a spineless fool, yet the prospect of confronting her, of facing that cool detachment, was unbearable. He spent nights awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying fragments of their connection. The sound of her laughter. The attentive way she'd looked at him when he'd excitedly described his bakery dreams. Had it all been a fabrication? Had he manufactured the connection, the promise? The pizza shop now felt sterile, his colleagues' chatter grating. Every saccharine love song on the radio felt like a personalized jab. He was back to zero, engulfed by his insecurities, his heart throbbing with a dull, familiar sorrow. He realized, with a desolate certainty, that he was losing her. And he was utterly clueless as to why. A letter to Kenji. The blank page mocked Leo. Another sheet joined its crumpled brethren, the soft thud barely registering in the silent apartment. "How do you even begin to unpack this mess?" he sighed, flinging the paper wad towards the overloaded bin missing wide. 3 days. 3 days lost to wrestling with words, gnawing on pens, and the creeping dread of failure. Kenji needed to grasp the impossible. More than that, perhaps. Offer absolution. He seized a fresh sheet, its stark whiteness an intimidating canvas beneath his unsteady fingers. He tried again. Kenji too stiff. Erased. Hey Kenji too flippant. Gone too. He scrubbed a hand through his already unruly hair. He had to be forthright, exposed, but not pitiable. Pen met teeth once more, the plastic unyielding. Finally he committed, "Kenji, this will probably sound crazy. Utterly bonkers. But please just hear me out." He paused, the words on the page failing to capture the roiling storm within. He inhaled deeply and pressed on. "Remember all those talks about finding your soulmate? That one person who just got you? I thought I knew what that meant back then. Shared passions, matched histories, right? It's deeper than that, Kenji. It's a resonance. A magnetic pull. And I've found that in Aiko." His pulse hammered a frantic rhythm as he wrote her name. A secret unveiled, a treachery committed, even as logic reminded him Aiko was her own agent. Yet, the guilt persisted, a low thrum of unease. "I know what you're thinking. Your mom. And yeah, that's a whole universe of complications. Trust me, I'm aware. But this isn't some grand scheme, Kenji. It just unfurled. From the instant our paths crossed again, after all this time, the ground shifted beneath me. That pizza run? Supposed to be autopilot. Instead it was everything." He detailed the lilt of her laughter, the constellations of wrinkles around her eyes when she smiled, the narratives etched into her skin, her tattoos. He wrote about hushed evenings in her softly lit apartment, incense spiraling into the air, secrets whispered between them. "She understands me, Kenji, sees past the stammering idiot I usually am. She's more than just your mom. She's someone I can actually confide in. Someone who erases the loneliness. I know how selfish that sounds, given everything. But I had to be honest." He paused, adding, "This isn't about replacing you, Kenji. You're my friend. Always will be. I would never willingly inflict pain. I just couldn't bear the weight of this secret any longer. I needed you to know the unvarnished truth." Finished, his hand shook. He reread it, wincing at the exposed nerve endings. It was flawed, imperfect, yet genuine. He folded it meticulously and slipped it into an envelope. He addressed it to their childhood home in Kyoto, the address retrieved from faded memories of youthful correspondence. Out on the corner, The night air offered a cool balm. The letter slipped into the mailbox, the metallic click echoing in the stillness. Returning to his apartment, a strange cocktail of relief and trepidation bubbled within him. He'd played his hand. Now, only waiting remained. He hoped Kenji could comprehend. He hoped their bond could weather this storm. He hoped, desperately. A son's understanding. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, like it was stuffed with unspoken anxieties instead of folded paper. Kenji recognized Leo's handwriting instantly, neat, almost overly precise, a stark contrast to Leo's often flustered demeanor. He'd found it tucked beneath a ceramic cat statue on the porch, Aiko's porch. He'd almost missed it, busy as he was mentally rehearsing reasons why he'd just dropped by, unannounced, on a Tuesday afternoon. He took the letter inside, the scent of miso soup and green tea clinging to the air. Aiko was out, running errands, she'd said. Which gave him the perfect opportunity to snoop, he admitted to himself with a twinge of guilt. He sat at the kitchen table, the smooth, cool surface grounding him. He hesitated for a moment, the unopened letter a physical manifestation of his internal conflict. Finally, he tore it open, the crisp paper yielding to his touch. Leo's words spilled onto the page, a torrent of apologies, explanations, and confessions. He wrote of his admiration for Aiko, her strength, her laughter, the way she made him feel like he was finally home. He confessed his growing feelings, his fear of judgment, his desperate hope for understanding. Kenji read it twice, each time the words sinking deeper, cracking the shell of his initial disapproval. He thought of his mother. He remembered the endless cups of tea she brewed for him after bad soccer games, the quiet strength she displayed when his father left. The lines etched around her eyes weren't just signs of age, they were maps of resilience, of unspoken sacrifices. He'd always assumed her happiness was tied to him, to his success, to the life he envisioned for her. A quiet, comfortable retirement, surrounded by family. He hadn't considered what she might want. Hadn't truly seen her as a woman with desires and needs beyond those of a mother. He pictured Leo, clumsy and sweet, delivering pizzas with a genuine smile. He wasn't his father, that much was certain. He was different. Earnest. And maybe, just maybe, he was exactly what Aiko needed. Someone to see her, truly see her, beyond the role of mother and widow. The silence of the kitchen pressed in on him. He looked around at the carefully arranged flowers on the windowsill, the vibrant artwork on the walls, the sense of warmth and life that permeated the space. This wasn't the home of a woman simply existing. It was the home of a woman living. A wave of shame washed over him. He'd been so quick to judge, so blinded by his own preconceived notions, that he'd almost robbed his mother of a chance at happiness. He pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he scrolled through his contacts. He found Leo's number and pressed call. The phone rang twice before Leo answered, his voice hesitant. "Hello. Leo, it's Kenji." There was a pause, thick with apprehension. "Kenji? I wasn't sure if you'd—" "I read your letter," Kenji interrupted, his voice firm. "And I wanted to say, I understand." He could practically hear Leo's relief over the phone line. "You do?" "Yeah," Kenji said, a smile creeping onto his face. "She deserves to be happy, Leo. More than anything. And if you're the one who can make her happy, then I'm all for it. Just be good to her, okay?" "I will," Leo promised, his voice choked with emotion. "I swear, Kenji, I will. Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," Kenji said, a genuine warmth spreading through him. "Just take care of her." He hesitated for a moment. "And maybe we can all grab a pizza sometime? My treat." Leo laughed, the sound light and genuine. "I'd like that, Kenji. I really would." Kenji hung up the phone, a sense of peace settling over him. He knew there would be challenges ahead, adjustments to be made. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was finally doing the right thing. For his mother, for Leo, and for himself. An unconventional love. The air in Aiko's diminutive garden was perfumed with honeysuckle, a stark contrast to the slick of unease on Leo's hands. A week of mental rehearsals had yielded nothing but increasingly absurd declarations. Now, facing her, his carefully constructed speeches had vanished. Aiko, unaware of his inner conflict, sketched in her notebook, the twilight sun igniting streaks of auburn in her ebony hair. Inside, Kenji was supposedly tackling algebra, but Leo suspected a less academic pursuit, eavesdropping. Aiko, Leo finally croaked, his voice betraying his nerves. He cleared his throat, hoping for steadiness. There's something I need to share. Her dark eyes lifted, questioning. Is everything all right? Swallowing against the dryness in his throat, he blurted, I think I'm in love with you. The words spilled out, a torrent he couldn't stem. He steeled himself for rejection, a mocking laugh, anything but the tender, almost melancholic curve of her lips. Leo, she breathed, closing her sketchbook. I'm fond of you too. Very much so. But... She paused, worrying at a frayed thread on her shorts. But? He pressed, his spirits plummeting. It's complicated. I'm a single parent. Kenji is my priority. And, well, you know how this town can be. She gestured towards the houses bordering her property. They dissect everything. They judge. I don't want that for Kenji. Or for you. Leo closed the space between them, his hand covering hers. I don't give a damn what they think, Aiko. And Kenji seems to like me well enough. He squeezed gently. I care about you. About both of you. Her eyes glistened, and she returned the pressure. I care about you too, Leo. More than is wise, perhaps. It's been a long, solitary road. The following weeks unfolded as a cautious pas de deux. The routine remained: pizza deliveries, shared suppers, whispered conversations under the starlight. Except now, a palpable energy shimmered between them. Touches lingered, glances deepened, and the very atmosphere vibrated with unspoken possibilities. Kenji, surprisingly, became their biggest champion, a pint-sized Cupid. He witnessed the genuine affection flourishing between them and recognized its impact on his mother's happiness. He even started playfully ribbing Leo, dubbing him stepdad in training, and dispensing unsolicited and largely unhelpful romantic advice. The community, however, proved a tougher audience. Mrs. Ito, the resident town crier, observed them from behind her lace-draped windows, her lips a thin, disapproving line. Whispers followed them through the aisles of the local market, and Leo intercepted sidelong stares brimming with speculation and censure. Gradually, though, the tide began to turn. They witnessed Leo patiently untangling Kenji's algebraic woes. They noticed him arriving with wildflowers for Aiko, humble gestures plucked from the roadside, not extravagant displays. They saw them sharing laughter, their faces illuminated with a genuine radiance. One evening, as Leo and Aiko strolled home from the park, Kenji trailing behind, kicking a discarded soda can, Mrs. Ito emerged from her doorway, her expression uncharacteristically softened. Aiko, she began, her voice almost timid. I saw you at the fair. You looked content. She faltered, searching for the right phrasing. Kenji appears to be quite fond of Leo. Aiko simply smiled, a serene acknowledgement. He is Mrs. Ito. The subsequent Sunday, Leo found himself seated at Aiko's kitchen table, sharing fragrant green tea with Mrs. Ito and several other women from the neighborhood. The questions came, a gentle interrogation, but the animosity was gone, replaced by curiosity, even acceptance. The pivotal moment arrived during the annual summer picnic. Leo, initially dreading the event, found himself swept up in the communal merriment. He assisted Aiko in setting up her pottery display, tossed a frisbee with Kenji, and even partnered with Mrs. Ito to a surprising victory in the three-legged race. By day's end, he was no longer a stranger, he was one of them. That night, under a canopy of fireflies, Leo and Aiko swayed gently on her porch swing, Kenji already lost in slumber inside. So, Leo murmured, drawing her close. What do you say? Shall we risk this unconventional romance? Aiko rested her head against his shoulder, her voice a soft sigh. I believe, she whispered, that we already have.